You know what sound that is, folks? You betcha. It's another Noon Whistle. I'm Chris Trottier.
And I'm John Anzalone, and I'm here with BZ Kayser, not only a 1989 graduate of Elkhorn, but he has worked for our city electric department for 35, did I get that right?
35 years.
35 years, Elkhorn guy, and also has been our high school soccer coach from 2010 until 2024-25 here, where he recently just passed the torch, correct?
I did pass the torch, passed it on to my youngest son, Chandler Kayser.
Nice, congrats. And not only just a high school career, but I know you said it early on, Chris, that BZ's been extremely successful, maybe the most successful high school coach or one of the top high school coaches in Elkhorn.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we have some of our best conversations off the air, but digging into the secret sauce. And I think before we jump into that coaching career, I think I'd like to hear what it was like, BZ, you and your family. I mean, you grew up here, you work here, you live here, you raise your family here. Talk about why Elkhorn has been home for you and your family for so long and what you love about it.
I don't know. That's the crazy part about it. My folks went to school here. My grandparents did, and so it's just been like 3 generations. And then my kids went to school, and and we fell in love with it at a very weird time in my life because I was a football guy all the time, and I was actually coaching football in the youth program for Dean Wilson at the time, and my oldest one kind of got into soccer a little bit with my brother and my nephew, and unfortunately, he got a little ill, my brother, with MS, and so he ended up kind of in a wheelchair. And so I slowly started kind of coming to some of his practices, and my nephew was 3 years older, and my oldest one, Jordan, he was pretty decent at it, and so he kind of got me going in it and that stuff, and then from there on, the wheels just kept going, and Mom's just been very passionate about it, and then Chandler fell in love with it, and my dad's just followed us everywhere. And I don't think he's ever missed a youth game. I mean, I coached John's son. I mean, he remembers him at all these youth games, through all the high school games. And
well, that's kind of where your legacy started, was the youth, right?
It started in the youth, yeah.
You took on and got involved in the youth program, and had really your success started there. When you think that group you had with those kids that were born in like 96, started them out, there was a lot of success there.
There was a lot of success there. We went to a lot of tournaments in that youth there. We went throughout the state, did like Badger State, we did some tournaments in Illinois. We did a lot of indoor, and we played a lot, and that's kind of where it all started. That, and then the group above that was a good class too. So that was like the John Stopples class there. So we tied the John Stopples class in with the Darren Anzalone class, the Chandler Kayser class, kind of coming through in that, and then that's how we kind of built it. And then
what did you learn from the youth that made you want to jump into the high school coaching?
Just thought the challenge of it. I mean, we really weren't really.
You like challenges?
Yeah, I love challenges. I mean, we really weren't on the map, really at the time that, so I was like, I don't think I have much to lose. And so, yeah, I think I definitely came in as a long shot when I first put in for the job. I don't think they thought no way in the world. And I surprised a few people when I first got the job and that. And so we turned it around pretty quickly, I think.
Think about that.
Yeah, tell us about the purple flurp.
The purple flurp. I wore my purple flurp sweatshirt, and this was the youth team that BZ first coached, that Chandler was on and my son Darren was on. I'll let him explain what purple flurp means, because he does it best.
Well, so Darren Anzalone and Chandler, my son, they hung a lot when they were in their youth, and they used to watch the cartoons like every kid watches cartoons. So, I mean, I tried to kick them out to play a little soccer, but they sat inside, watched some cartoons first, and they watched Jimmy Neutron. So back then, Jimmy Neutron, they used to drink this soda pop that was purple, and they called it Purple Flurp. And from there on, that's how we got the name. We're the Purple Flurp Elkhorn Elks back in the day.
So what's let's before we continue with the soccer conversation. So we grew up here. Here's how you got into coaching. giving back to the community, you raised your family here, and you work in the community. And on this cold day, I feel like you're kind of an important piece to making sure everybody stays comfortable. How'd you get involved in working at the Elkhorn Utility Company?
So right out of high school, I got into the apprenticeship program. And so it's 4 years at up in Eau Claire, Chippewa Valley. So I did the apprenticeship program there, and then became a journeyman lineman, and then just kind of went through the ranks being the lead lineman, and then now I'm the utility supervisor. Funny you say that. We actually did have an outage. About probably maybe a quarter of the town was out this morning, so because of the cold. So yeah, you're always on call 24/7. So there's always lights got to stay on. So, but yeah, I've been doing that, and to be honest with you, I really think the lessons that I learned, of being a lineman, it's one of the, you can look it up. It's one of the top dangerous jobs in the world. Dealing with electricity at the high voltage and that, and so there's certain steps that you have to follow every single day to be safe. And so attention to detail is massive. And I think that's where I got that from coaching, was attention to details. I just had to make sure everything was perfect all the time. So I carried that over through how I work. I carried over how I'm a father, carried over how I'm a husband, carried over how I was a coach. So it's kind of how my life the lineman kind of taught me a lot of just how to be everything I do in life.
So if a kid wants to be a lineman, because that comes up, we have conversations.
Yeah.
You said Chippewa Falls Tech.
Yeah, there's 9-month schools. There's one in Janesville. There's one in Green Bay. There's those like 9-month schools. Once you finish those 9-month schools, so it's basically one year, and then you try to get spotted into different communities to try to become a lineman, co-ops or investor owns or municipalities. I was fortunate enough, I just jumped right in it, and the utility right away just took me, and I almost went right away. So I didn't have to go to the 9-month school. I just jumped right in and going to first year as apprentice.
So Chris, interesting story here. So listen to BZ. I have all these thoughts. And so the police department and the electric used to be in the same building on North Washington Street when BZ first started, and I first started in law enforcement. And I had known BZ for a long time. And if I'm being honest, I'm thinking, BZ has a lot of energy, right?
Yeah.
Like you're full of energy, always has been. Probably toned it down now from where you were. I thought this kid's going to hurt himself being a lineman because he's all over the place, and he's like, let's go. And here he is, the supervisor.
Yeah.
It can happen.
And another funny part to even go off that story is I grew up in the backyard of Dean Wilson. So, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about my mentors. And obviously Dean is one of my.
Well, go with it. Yeah, let's hear him.
And so his backyard was next to mine. So him saying about being high strung and kind of always just going at it and that, I can't imagine, because Dean Wilson was the athletic director. And when he came home and told his wife, Kathy, that he hired me, she had to be saying, there ain't no way in the world you're like Kayser to run the soccer program. No way. So going up that story with him, thinking that was how I was going to be. I'm sure that's how she was thinking the same thing too.
Well, besides Dean, who are some other mentors as you got into, whether it's in growing up here or it's as a coach or as an current supervisor?
Coaching wise, so I was probably maybe 12 or 13. So at the time, Eric Larson probably must have been maybe 22, 23. Mm-hmm. So he was my first basketball coach here at the middle school. And obviously I really respected him a lot because I went to a lot of basketball games when I was a little boy. My dad took me to games when I was, 7, 8 years old. And then that's when they're making those state runs and that, and you thought those guys were superstars back then as a little kid, So I got this guy that's coaching me and that, So everything that he said, I listened to, and he ran us hard. He was hard on us and that. And I just thought that was life. That was coaching.
Yeah.
So he was like kind of my first one, but obviously, Dean was big time. I grew up like in the backyard, so through youth stuff, with baseball and flag football and wrestling and basketball. He just did everything and that, and he just, he had to know him. He liked to rule with an iron fist, but he was cunning as a bear if you got to know him very well. So he was definitely my number one is Dean for sure.
So coaching, you did it from 2010 to 2024. I'm not going to ask you your record unless you know it, but how many conference championships and state runs?
Conference championship we did 10 in 15 years. Did 13 regional championships in 15 years. The program went to state 5 times. A lot of sectional finals, but we don't want to talk. We lost a lot of those too, also. Those we don't want to talk about too much. And then I honestly don't know the losses. Might be like in the 40s, and then maybe the 20s for ties. Wins are over 200. I know. What the exact numbers, I don't know.
That's all right. That's all right. That's a pretty good run, Coach.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a run. And you brought it up before that. Yeah, we say you've had this run, but I know there's a lot of people that you surrounded yourself with, including your family, that were pretty involved, correct?
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. Yeah. In the very beginning, I mean, the first person I went to right away, which caused a little controversy at first because he was over at Delvin, was Clay Nelson. Getting Clay to come over here was big time because me and Clay did Purple Flip together. And Clay was the soccer coach over there, the wrestling coach over there, but Ryan, his son, was going to be coming a freshman into Elkhorn. And I know it meant a lot for Clay to be able to coach his son, so that was tough to try to get him. That was my very first person. I said, I got to get him. So, that was huge getting Clay to come along and get involved. And got Jason Lawrence involved for a short period of time, doing some goalkeeping stuff.
Your wife was a little bit involved, wasn't she?
She was tremendously involved. And, as you look back at 3 programs, if you want to say how successful they were, you could say that Fred Suki, you could say Dean Wilson. And if you're going to throw me in there, there's 3 things that you got to say that happened with all 3 of them. And I know because I saw it with my own eyes is how involved each of their wives were involved in stuff like that. Kathy was so involved with that program, and you saw that there. Fred's wife was, and John Handel, Barb was super involved, with the youth stuff and that. I think it's got to be a family type thing. And if you can't get your spouse on board and it's everything to her too, and she's just as passionate when you come home and you lose, and sometimes she was more mad than I am when I got home from games. So, and she went to a lot of games with my dad and that. So I know for one game instance, when we came back from Oregon, we got beat in the sectional finals in double overtime, and it was golden goal then. So we're like 20 seconds away from going to a shootout, and they called a penalty kick on one of our boys in the box. You can argue it, whatever you want, but obviously they made it, and the game was over in that. So the game was in Wanakee, and my dad was telling me the next day, he's like, oh my goodness, he goes, Becky, she was ranting and raving and cussing and swearing. Never heard her talk that way. Yeah, she's passionate for it, baby.
So I asked you this before, and we talked a little bit through it. So in all that success, I always think when you ask leaders or coaches who've had tremendous success, what's the secret sauce? And what's that? Why is that? What do you think?
Well, I think the first thing I did at start of the whole thing was I think my very first captain was my most important move that I've ever made. That was John Stoppel. When I brought him in, he was really respected by his class and the class above him. So he was a sophomore at the time, and that's a lot of responsibility for a sophomore. But we didn't have many seniors my very first year, so it was more of a sophomore junior class. Mm-hmm. And then my other son, Jordan, he was a captain too. But John everybody just involved around him. And so the next thing that I did after that is because I went through an apprenticeship program, I kind of took that and I always try to find a young person. So the next young person was going to be my son Chandler, which was going to be a freshman. So I kind of made Chandler be his apprentice and then kind of mock him what he did on and off the field. He was an excellent student. Teachers loved him on and off the field. All those things really mattered. And so Chandler kind of did the same thing, and he kind of took it. He ran with it, and then we passed it on, to the next, group that kind of came there, it was from, the Umnus twins to Devin Davey and to, you just pass those on. And then, I mean, like this year too, I had 2 awesome captains again. And so that's the start of it.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that control the locker room, and they're the ones that control the stuff that goes on and off the field, make sure people are doing the right things at the right locations on the right time on the weekends and stuff like that. So those things all matter in that stuff there. They're the hardest workers in practice. They're the hardest workers at everything that you do. So you got to try to find those guys first, and don't give a captain to the most popular guy. He's got to be a guy that does everything in that stuff, and everybody's got to respect the living heck out of him. Sometimes it's a tough call, and because there's been people have been PO'd because they weren't the captains.
So what about you? You always have had, call it core covenants, motto, battle cry, whatever you want to call it, but you've always had that thing like, this is what we stand for, and you put it on your shirts, and I hear you telling kids, this is who we are. Like, why?
Oh, well, yeah, I think you need a battle call every year. I mean, when we didn't finish it one year, I mean, we said, finish the fight, hold the rope was one of them, everybody knows the old saying, hold the rope, I think the one key thing is we've always made sure that I've always told the kids, A, what they have to do. So I've always told them what they have to do. B, I've explained exactly what they have to do. So you can't just tell them, but you got to physically show them and even draw it for them. So if you get them to do those 2 things, I think the key thing is the last one. You got to talk them into it. You got to let them know, and they got to buy into why you're doing it. Because sometimes you can tell them, you can show them, and they still like, that's just it. I'm not into that.
Do you think a coach needs to model that, whatever that is? Does your staff model that, or are they following the same path?
What do you mean?
If you say, hold the rope, like, what about like you as coaches? Is like, do you guys follow that? Do you think that's important?
Have to. I think it's. I remember too what I would do too, like early in the mornings and that stuff. Steve Simonson would always be at the gym working out in the morning. So I said, all right, I'm going to start coming and working out in the gyms early in the morning. Then I started inviting the boys and the girls to start coming early in the morning, thinking, hey, I'm 54 now. At the time he was 54, and I was in my early 40s. Like, well, if us old farts can get up early and do this, you young kids can come here. So they'd seen us like in the gym and working out. And I think that you're 100% right. They saw the tone that we set there. I always say, I think if they see that I'm working, I'm in good shape, I'm sacrificing to get up early in the morning. They know that I'm going scouting, breaking films down. They see that I'm sacrificing, and then my leader will sacrifice, and the players will sacrifice. And so, like you say, yeah, if like I said, those are my 3 big things there. You got to tell them what to do. You got to explain to them exactly what you want to do, and you got to believe why you want to do. Because sometimes our system is the most sexiest soccer system everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to play, the Real Madrid type soccer, and that's what everybody in the world wants to play. And you know what? If you have all the great players in the world, that you can play that way. But we got to figure out how, because we don't have the most sexiest players in the world. So we got to figure out how we're going to win. So sometimes we might have to play a little, like as in basketball terms, a little bit man-to-man type things. We're going to have to, do certain things here and there. You're going to have to grind it out a little bit. You're not going to be in the spotlight today. You're going to have to do this job today. So that's the part where you got to tell them, you got to explain to them, and sometimes you got to understand, you got to talk them in, and they got to believe it.
Right or wrong.
Right or wrong, they got to believe it.
Observer.
Yeah.
I've always felt like watching games that you really stress defense. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I don't know a lot about soccer other than what you do and kick the ball around and try to get in the net, but it always seemed like Frank was your soccer, your defense.
Correct.
Okay.
No, it's funny. The funny thing is that, and this is true. I mean, most coaches would be offended by this. And the is they tell the story the best. Like Danny's still the same thing too. He said, we didn't learn nothing about soccer from you. We learned nothing from you. But what we learned from you was the hard work, getting after it, the defense, and getting us. Those are the things, and those are things that I think that Elkhorn is known for and that stuff here. I mean,
the group's always played hard.
Well, that's good. Yeah. Well, I'm coaching my son's 10th grade basketball or 5th grade basketball team, and when I send an email, the first thing I say is, I'm not going to spend a lot of time teaching a kid how to play the game of basketball. I'm going to teach him how to work hard, be a good teammate, and do the right thing. Right?
Oh, for sure.
And isn't that kind of what you just said? You did for how long?
Well, I tell them too. I say, everybody can't be the best player on the team. You just can't be. But if you can be the best teammate, I mean, that's a hell of a compliment. If someone can say, John, boy, you were a heck of a teammate. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I mean, that goes a long ways when someone tells you that stuff there, because everybody can't be the best player. It's just impossible.
No.
Yeah.
Well, John, we're about this. I think we could go on for another 25 minutes.
I think we could.
Yeah. So I guess, how do you want to close today? You got anything you want to?
I was thinking maybe if BZ wanted to share a couple of his favorite memories along the way.
I like that.
A couple of soccer memories.
Yeah. All right.
Oh boy, couple
Top
soccer
two.
memories.
Top two.
Top two. All right.
Top two memories.
Oh man, I mean that's a lot, because there was a lot of things that went in on that. Well, so sad one would be is when my oldest one, Jordan, we were coaching together, and we lost to Oregon up at Sauk Prairie in a sectional finals shootout. Those shootouts, man. And when we got to the gate, my grandson, which Jordan's son, was probably at the time, 5. And he was just bawling that stuff there. It was really cute to see it, obviously it broke your heart to see him that stuff there. He was like, all right, he'll be in the car in 10 minutes playing with his toys and that. But everybody just was all gathered around the parents, the kids, and that was the part there. Obviously, I mean, the best thing that ever happened was in 2011. I mean, when we took the team to state, I mean, I had both my boys on the team. We were Division I at the time. That was tough to go in Division I, in a team sport. You can get there in, individual sports and that, but it's tough to make it, in a small community like this in Division I. And that was the point that really put us on the map. In 2011, did it with my family, did it with my wife, my 2 boys. My dad was at all the games, big deal.
That's cool.
And I think that's what turned the community too. I mean, I saw kids like at Halloween that would be dressed up like as soccer players and that stuff. And then from that point there, that's when the camp went from 30 kids to 130 kids very next year, and everyone wanted to play.
Well, it came full circle, right? I mean, I remember watching the state basketball, and here you go.
100%. That was exactly it.
Well, I'll tell you my favorite memory, just because I'll never forget it, is shoveling the turf.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah, that was before the sectionals there. We had that snow net there. And I remember I was out there with a shovel, and I started shoveling. And I don't know if it was John or if it was Jason. They said, this guy is mad. There's nowhere in the world we're ever going to get all this snow off the field by tonight. And I'll be damned, we got it. Thanks to John. Pushed out stuff to the community. You let kids come out and shovel. You ordered pizza. I mean, there was people that just show up with shovels. Right. I feel like 100 people shoveling.
Rick Rand went to True Value and bought every shovel possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody was out there. Yeah.
That was a lot of pressure. We had to win that game. And we did.
That was a great story.
That was 2019. We went to state. That was
that was fun.
Yeah, it was Devin Davies' senior year.
Yep. We had people showing up.
Yeah.
A couple elderly folks are like, "Yep, I got nothing going on." Here they are. They're just moving snow. Kids are sitting there.
We even had some Delavan people come over because they played the game before us, because they're like, "Hey, like, if we get the snow up, you can play."
We did. Yeah, the AD from Delavan came over.
Yeah, shoveling too.
Yeah, it was cool. All right. Well, BZ, thanks for everything you do. John, we got to get out of here.
We do.
Congratulations on a great career. We're excited to see the baton handed to your amazing son, Chandler. And I'm sure you'll be around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for taking time with us.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me.
All right. On that note, about that time. See you later. Thanks, BZ.